They thought he was just a tired, old man waiting at the bus stop, until one wrong move showed them. He was a former Marine they never should have messed with. The bench gave a quiet creak under the weight of the man sitting there, slouched, but somehow still steady. His name was Darren. His face showed signs of deep exhaustion. His dark skin glistened under the weak flash of a flickering streetlight. It was close to midnight. The streets of Kansas City were unusually quiet for a Friday night. Darren's shoulders drooped under the heavy backpack strapped to him, filled with tools from his job as a mechanic. Tonight, he had come straight from his second job, cleaning office buildings. He rubbed his forehead, feeling the pounding in his head after a long week. All he wanted was to go home, sink into his old recliner, and maybe catch a few hours of sleep before doing all over again. Then he heard sharp laughter. A group of young men stood just a few feet away. Darren looked briefly. 4 of them, probably in their 20s, dressed in baggy hoodies, their voices loud in the quiet night. "Hey, old man," one of them shouted. Darren ignored him, gripping his bag tighter. "What's the matter, you deaf?" Another one said, laughing cruelly. Still, Darren didn't move. He stared ahead, silent. His years in the military had taught him discipline, even in moments like this. But their voices kept getting louder, their words more insulting. One of them tossed an empty soda can that hit the ground just inches from Darren's boots. His face stayed calm, unreadable, but inside, something shifted. It's always the loud ones, he thought, the ones who don't know when to stop. But sometimes, ignoring trouble only makes it worse. He had seen this kind of thing before. It wasn't new, and he knew it wouldn't be the last time. Over the years, Darren had learned that some people saw a tired man in dirty clothes and thought he was weak. They didn't see the Marine who had served 2 tours overseas. They didn't know about the hours he'd spent sharpening skills that had saved lives. Life after the military hadn't been easy. Coming back to the civilian world felt like another kind of war. Jobs were hard to find. Bills piled up, and the world didn't care much about what men like him had given up. So Darren worked wherever he could, sometimes 2 or 3 jobs just to keep the lights on. Still, no matter how hard things got, he carried himself with quiet strength. Tonight was no different. He didn't dress to stand out, just a faded blue work shirt, scuffed jeans, and steel-toe boots. His hands, rough from years of hard work, rested on his knees. To anyone passing by, he looked like just another working man trying to survive another day. But Darren wasn't just anyone. Beneath the calm surface was a fighter, a man who had faced real danger, much worse than a few loud kids. Still, he didn't want trouble tonight. He just wanted peace, a rare thing these days. One of the guys stepped closer, his sneakers scraping on the sidewalk. "What? You too good to talk to us," he said, his voice full of fake confidence. Darren looked up, meeting the young man's eyes for the first time. His gaze was steady, calm. "I'm just waiting for my bus," he said, his voice quiet but clear. The young man smirked and turned to his friends. "Did you hear that? He's too busy for us. Must think he's better than us." They laughed loudly, encouraged by the attention. But what starts as a joke can quickly turn into something worse. Their laughter echoed down the empty street, bouncing off the nearby buildings. Darren stayed still, eyes locked on the faint lights of a distant bus. He breathed in deeply, steadying himself. The group's leader, a skinny guy with a backwards baseball cap, stepped in closer. "Look at you, sitting like you own the place. Bet you don't even belong around here," he taunted. Darren didn't say a word. He just shifted his backpack slightly, a small move, but it showed he was listening. That silence only made them push harder. Another guy tossed a crumpled fast food wrapper. It landed near Darren's feet. "Come on, old man. What's wrong? You scared?" Still, nothing. Darren's face didn't change. But inside, something else was going on. He was scanning the situation. His instincts kicked in. For them, close range, one leading the others. Their behavior was all for show. All noise, no bite. At least, that's what Darren hoped. But then, the guy in the backwards cap took another step forward. This time, he crossed a line Darren couldn't ignore. He reached out and gave Darren a shove, just enough to test him. "Yeah, That's what I thought. Weak, the man muttered. Darren stood up slowly, on purpose. Every move was calm and steady. He was taller than the young man, broader too. Even after years of hard work and long days, his body was still strong. You don't want to do this, Darren said softly. His voice wasn't loud, but it was firm. The group burst into laughter again, but something in the air shifted. There was no anger in Darren's tone, but there was strength, the kind they hadn't expected. Man, who do you think you are? Baseball Cap sneered, stepping closer, his friends shouting in the background, egging him on. Darren took a deep breath. He didn't want to fight, but he also knew that walking away now might only make things worse. I'm giving you a chance to leave, he said, locking eyes with the young man. Don't waste it. But some people only learn the hard way. Baseball Cap laughed again, but it didn't sound real. It was the kind of laugh someone uses to hide fear. His friends were watching closely, getting louder, pushing him to act tough. The tension grew thicker. As the young man stepped in, now just a foot away. What are you going to do, huh? He said with a mocking tone. You think you scare me, old man? Darren didn't move. His calm eyes stared right into the younger man's. He could feel their eyes all over him, testing him, waiting to see what he'd do. He'd seen this kind of moment many times before, in war zones, in tough neighborhoods. And now at a bus stop, it was always the same. Someone trying to prove something, too proud to back off. Suddenly, Baseball Cap shoved Darren hard with both hands. Darren stepped back, steadying himself, but didn't fight back, not yet. His silence, his calm, only seemed to make them more upset. Oh, now you're acting tough? Another guy yelled, stepping up. Let's see how tough you really are. And just like that, things exploded. Baseball Cap swung first. A messy, uncoordinated punch aimed at Darren's face. But Darren moved like water. He sidestepped easily, smooth and in control. Before the punch had even finished, Darren grabbed the man's wrist, tight as steel. Stop, Darren said, his voice low now, sharp and full command. But the others rushed in. One grabbed Darren's arm. Another tried to hit him from the side. Darren let go of the first guy's wrist and turned, his body moving with the ease of experience. He caught the next punch midair, twisting the man's arm just enough to drop him to the pavement. The third guy hesitated, but still charged. Darren turned him around, using the man's own momentum to send him off balance. The whole thing was quick and quiet, not flashy or loud, just clean, controlled moves. Darren wasn't trying to hurt anyone. He just wanted it to stop. Enough, he said. His voice sliced through the noise like a blade. It wasn't a plea. It was an order. The young men backed off, breathing hard, eyes wide. Darren stood tall, calm, and completely steady, as if none of it had shaken him at all. The silence that followed felt huge, so much louder than the fight itself. But silence can speak louder than words. And Darren wasn't done yet. The boys stood frozen. Their fake confidence vanished into the cool night air. Darren now stood like a wall in front of them, solid, unmoving, and impossible to ignore. Baseball Cap clutched his wrist, his eyes flicking between his friends and Darren. He wanted to say something, to hold on to whatever pride he had left, but no words came. Darren looked over each of them, his stare calm but firm. You're lucky, he said. He finally spoke, his voice calm and firm. Because I've had a long day, he said, and I don't have the energy to show you what real pain feels like. His words hit hard, not because they were loud, but because they were honest. Darren had fought in places where staying alive meant quick thinking and fast action. He had seen things that had taken parts of him he'd never get back. These boys had no idea how close they'd come to crossing a dangerous line. Still trying to act tough, Baseball Cap spat near Darren's feet. Whatever, man, you ain't special. Darren stepped forward, slowly and with purpose. He stopped just inches away and leaned down, so his face was level with the young man's. I'm not special, he said quietly, but I've seen what happens to people who think they can't be touched. Trust me, you don't want to find out. The others started to shift uneasily, glancing at each other. Their confidence was breaking. Darren never raised his voice. He didn't need to. His calm presence said more than yelling ever could. Then he straightened up. "Here's your warning," he said. "Walk away while you still can." The group hesitated. Their pride clashed with the clear fact that they were no match for him. Finally, one of them mumbled, "Let's go," and started to back away. The rest followed slowly, muttering weak insults over their shoulders, just to save face. Darren watched them until they turned the corner and disappeared. He let out a long breath and rolled his shoulders to release the tension. He wasn't angry anymore. What he felt was something deeper, a mix of frustration and sadness. He had seen too many young men like them, always trying to prove something, often learning too late, that the world didn't owe them anything. As the distant hum of the bus grew louder, Darren sat back down on the bench and picked up his bag. The night felt heavier now, not because of what had happened, but because of what almost did. But for Darren, the lesson wasn't just for them. It was for himself too. The bus pulled up with a soft hiss. Its doors opened slowly like a sigh. Darren stepped aboard, gave the driver a polite nod, and found a seat near the back. He dropped his bag on the floor and leaned back, staring out the window, as the city lights turned into blurry streaks of yellow and white. The rush of adrenaline was gone now, replaced by the familiar weight of exhaustion. He didn't feel proud of what happened, but he wasn't ashamed either. He had given those young men every chance to walk away. What they got was the gentlest version of the lesson he knew how to give. As the bus moved through the quiet streets, Darren thought about the choices people make. Those young men had been looking for trouble, and they almost found more than they could handle. He wondered where they were now, if they were laughing it off, or if any of what happened would stick with them. For Darren, the moment wasn't just about them. It was about his own path, too. Life had hit him hard, many times. It tested his strength in ways those boys couldn't even imagine. But over time, he had learned the true meaning of strength, not in fighting back, but in holding back. Real strength is choosing peace. When everything pushes you toward a fight, a quiet voice broke through his thoughts. "Long night, huh?" The bus driver glanced back at him in the mirror. Darren let out a faint chuckle and nodded. "You could say that." The driver smiled knowingly and turned back to the road. Darren shifted in his seat, letting the soft hum of the engine ease his mind. When the bus reached a stop, he stood, slung the bag over his shoulder, and stepped off into the cool night. He walked the final block to his apartment. The small, simple space welcomed him, with a familiar creak of the floorboards. He dropped his bag and sank into his recliner, staring at the ceiling. The events of the night replayed in his mind, not with anger, but quiet reflection. He thought about his younger self, the hard lessons, and the people who had helped shape the man he'd become. Sometimes the hardest battles are the ones where you choose not to fight. Tonight left Darren with a simple truth. Respect isn't something you demand. It's something you earn. Those boys, like so many others, were stuck trying to prove their worth in all the wrong ways. Darren hoped that someday they'd remember this night and understand the power in walking away, the dignity in choosing not to throw a punch. He sat quietly thinking, not just about them, but about his own journey. How life had taught him that real power comes from knowing when to act and when to stay still. It's not about proving yourself to others. It's about knowing your worth and staying true to it. And maybe, just maybe, those boys would carry this night with them as a quiet reminder of the man who didn't need to raise his fists to leave a lasting impact. As you think about Darren's story, ask yourself this: which battles are truly worth fighting, and which ones are better left alone? Respect is a two-way street, and sometimes the strongest thing you can do is choose peace. If Darren's story meant something to you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that challenge, inspire, and remind us what truly matters.